Hi everyone, thanks to everyone that watched my first video on jellyfish. It was really nice to speak to some diehard jellyfish fans and communicate our fandom to each other, so nice one. This video, if you couldn't tell by the title, is about the band The Darkness. In the previous video about jellyfish, I was able to cover every single song they recorded basically because they only have 2 records. I'm not going to be able to do that with The Darkness, but I will be going through each record one by one like I did in the previous video and give my thoughts on them, offer you some deep cuts that I think are worth listening to, and yeah, explain my favourites and why. I'm wanting to do these videos in order to shine a light on bands in a different way. You know, The Darkness for me are one of the bands that kind of wrongly get tarred with the one-hit wonder brush, you know, with having such a big hit in, I believe, in A Thing Called Love. But I don't think that's really fair to the rest of their discography. So I'm coming at this Darkness video from the angle of there is way more to The Darkness than I think the average rock fan gives them credit for. And I'd like to do a bit of a deep dive on their discography, as I think there are some real gems in their music, and I want to show you some of my favourites. So without further ado, we'll start with the classic. We'll start at the beginning. Permission to Land. You know, arguably one of the greatest debut albums ever, and I don't think anyone would really argue with that. Definitely in terms of rock, it's faultless, really. There's not a lot I can say about this record that people haven't already, said, that critics haven't already said, that rock aficionados haven't already said. It sold millions of copies. It was a massive album at the time, and it's still got large hordes of fans that really rate this as The Darkness' best album. And I'd be inclined to agree most days. There's little to dislike about it. But like I said previously, I think there's much more to The Darkness discography than this album and the hits that were on this album. My personal favourites from this album are Growing on Me. Growing on Me was one of the singles, of course. Believe in a Thing Called Love is amazing. I don't really need to talk about that song. It's going to be revered as a rock classic forever, and, it'll be on every dad rock compilation till we all die. It's a great song, and I don't really get bored of hearing the song, to be honest. There's a lot of songs in that realm of, classic rock dirge that I do detest listening to a lot of the time, but I still find a lot of value and a lot of fun in I Believe in a Thing Called Love. And I think it's the subtlety of the songwriting. I want to give a bit of an example as to why I think I Believe in a Thing Called Love kind of sits proudly as a really well-written song and a great pop song. And it's one of the themes throughout The Darkness' catalogue that I think separates them from their peers and other rock bands around, because where most rock bands, they will stick to power chords and everything will be very, very, very boring in terms of riff structure. But Dan Hawkins, I've always noticed, is always very clever with the way he voices things with his chords, and Believe in a Thing Called Love is no exception. So the pre-chorus is just an A and an F sharp. Ah, touching you, touching me. Well, you can tell if you just play power chords, it doesn't sound quite right. It doesn't have the voice in there that is actually on the song. So he plays a lovely suspended chord on it. Lovely suspended 4th chord there. Touching you, touching me. Touching you, got you touching me. And then we got the C sharp and the D at the end. It's little fresh things like that in the songwriting that I think is one of the impetuses for me liking The Darkness so much. For my musical nerd ear, there's a vast understanding of songwriting between the Hawkins brothers, and they're no fools when it comes to writing a rock song, and it's never boring. It's never just straight out rock riffs. There's always a little level of sophistication to them, and I think it's what really does separate them from a lot of the modern rock bands. The songs are just so well written, and Justin Hawkins is a really, really great top-line melody writer, which not many rock bands are. The vocals are often an afterthought for a lot of rock bands. It's usually very guitar-centric. It's usually, about the rhythm section a lot of the time, and the vocal is kind of just the wailing piece that sits on top for a lot of rock bands. And that's a generalization, of course, but it's also very right. Growing on Me is probably one of my favorites from the album. I just love the chorus. I love the lyrics. It's got a real just driving vibrancy to it. And a lot of the things that I really like about Permission to Land become the things that I really like about The Darkness and their other albums. I mean, there's not a lot to kind of dissect about the timbre or the sonic palette of The Darkness. It's a rock band. It's two guitars, bass, drums, and vocals. They don't really deviate from that blueprint. They have rock songs, they have ballads, and that's largely it. That does a slight disservice to the variation that is within that, but the fundamental level, everything is, it's a rock band having fun, and that is in every single Darkness song. You're not gonna find a very deep song from The Darkness which really is very emotive. There's always a kind of wry smile and a tongue-in-cheek element to The Darkness, and it's really what I like about rock music. I like the fun element. I don't like rock music when it's too contrived and too serious. I find it falls very flat when it tries to do that. There's very few bands that achieve that with with grace and dignity, but The Darkness don't try to do that. They just try to have fun and exemplify that through rock, which is always cool to hear, and I think they achieve it better than most. Friday Night is another one of my favourites from this album. It's just a really kind of bouncy pop rock song, and really showcases Justin's ability to write a top-line melody, which is kind of taken for granted a lot of the time, and I don't think people realise quite how hard that is to do, and successfully carry it off across, 10 songs on an album.
Monday, cycling, Tuesday, gymnastics, dancing on a Friday night. I got bridge club on Wednesday, archery on Thursday, dancing on a Friday night. Hey, you!
Every song on Permission to Land kind of has that, that great pop rock structure where it's just, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, solo, and maybe there's a middle eight or a bridge, but all the songs are very simplistic, but they all have their own identities, and Permission to Land is probably The Darkness's most coherent album, their most cohesive work. You could put any of these songs up against anything they've ever done, and, every song goes down a storm live when they play it. There's no lackluster moment on this album, and I do kind of sympathise with people's opinion of this being the best Darkness album. It's not my favourite though. I really want this to be my favourite, but it can't be, because there's a couple of songs that just they fall flat for me in the context of the album. They're still great songs, like English Country Garden, Bald, seemed like a good idea at the time. All individually quite quirky, Darkness songs, but they just don't kind of get to the heights of the other songs on this album. Conversely, this album contains some of the Darkness's best songs, in my opinion. The title track, One Way Ticket, for example, is just it's a hard rock masterpiece. It's produced by Roy Thomas Baker as well, this album, and it's very evident in the sound. He produced Queen's Night at the Opera, of course, and you can definitely hear that sound across, especially the vocal production. There's very clear and conscious efforts to do harmonies in the Queen sort of way, and the Queen element really comes across in this album.
It was a dusty old night, and I'm the first to admit it. I'm sure he had tapped someone, but my memory's chosen to omit it. Saying the was telling me I really should cool it. Chewing my face off, talking absolute rubbish. The first night hit me like a kick in the face.
Something like that. This album contains my favourite Darkness song, and that's why I wish I loved this album more. I wish the other songs stood up so it could support the brilliance in these songs. My favourite song by The Darkness is Hazel Eyes, and I know it's quite a fan favourite too amongst real Darkness heads. I don't know if that's a thing. What's the collective Darkness term for Darkness fans? Is there one? What are we called? What is the collective term for Darkness fans? I don't know. But yeah, Hazel Eyes. What an amazing song. Hell of a catchy chorus. The melodies, everything, the lush acoustic guitars on the intro, Justin's vocal, insane, really chaotic, mad, quirky solo from Dan. Yeah, just one of my absolute favourite songs, Hazel Eyes.
I hail from the flatlands of East Anglia, from a town that once could boast prosperity. She had trekked for many moons from a land afar, but the cruel nets had emptied the northern sea. And she said, "Who's a kind of bird taking whose body's Scotland? Girl, the hazel eyes, girl, the hazel eyes."
Justin Hawkins' voice on One Way Ticket seems to be at its best, I think. Not that he's ever lost his voice. His voice is still way up there, still sounding great today. You can tell he's really going for it. You can tell they're in the moment of, right, we just had a hit album, we need to record our best ever stuff. What you do get is Justin really exploring his range, using a lot of chest and head voice and his insane falsetto, and really kind of showing you the versatility that he does have, whereas Permission to Land is more in your face. Everything's at one kind of decibel, everything's got to be, I'm singing high, and that worked to, get them attention and get them notoriety, and it's definitely what sold Believe in a Thing Called Love. But there seems to be a bit more of exploration in Justin's voice on One Way Ticket, I find, to my ears anyway. I may be completely wrong and just waffling utter bollocks, but to my ears as a singer, I can really hear the conscious effort to do a bit more with the vocal. The first two albums cover a period of no more than 3, maybe 4 years tops. One Way Ticket and Permission to Land, and it very much feels like the Darkness have a few different eras, and to me this is the first era, is Permission to Land and One Way Ticket, They then went through a pretty tumultuous period. I don't really care about the politics of that or the dramas that, created that. I just want to focus on the music and the discography. But anyway, they had a pretty lengthy hiatus of about 6-7 years at this point, and then they would come back with a record entitled Hotcakes. Now, this record, I think most people in the Darkness, fan communities would agree, is probably the weakest Darkness album. I have a hard time with this album because I've gone back to it many times, and every time I listen to it, there is nothing objectively wrong with it. There's nothing I dislike about it. There's lots of things I really love about it. Some of the songs are great. Every Inch of You is a really great song. Everybody Have a Good Time as well is a great one. And the Street Spirit cover, the Radiohead cover, is amazing. They take a really depressing Radiohead ballad and turn it into an 80s metal song, which is just really funny if you know how conceited Radiohead can be. I don't care for Radiohead personally. I like the band, but I just find it really funny that The Darkness probably did a cover that Radiohead probably wouldn't like. Yeah, like I say, I have a bit of a difficult time with Hotcakes. It came out at a weird time, I think, for rock music. I don't think rock music was in a particularly good state at this point. I don't think anyone was really doing anything that interesting in rock, because for me personally, I don't really have any nostalgia attached to this album. It kind of just was bought to complete the Darkness discography for me. It was like, the album I didn't have, so I bought it, listened to it a couple of times, and then, it just sat on the shelf. I've gone back to it a few times since, and I definitely enjoy this record a lot more with the context of hindsight and just enjoying the record. And I'd recommend any other Darkness fan do the same, because I can't work out why I don't like this album. And maybe that's the wrong term to use, liking this album. I don't know why I don't listen to it more, and I don't know why more people don't like it, because everything's here. There's the great catchy top line melodies, there's great production, it's very well produced, the harmonies are great, the guitar solos are brilliant, the performances from everyone are really good. I'm not sure why. I don't know what I think about this record. I can't articulate my views on this one, and I find it quite jarring.
All these things that took position, all these things will one day take control.
Hotcakes deserves another listen from everyone. I think they should reissue this, or maybe if the Darkness showed it some love, because the Darkness themselves have never been pretty favourable in the way they talk about this record either, so maybe that's it. If you are a Darkness fan, let me know what you think of this album in particular. I'm pretty interested to see what people think of Hotcakes, because every time I speak to someone that is a Darkness fan, straight away everyone just slacks Hotcakes off and waffles on about Permission to Land, and I think that's unfair. So I'm going to endeavour to like this album more. I'm going to treat it like, I don't know, like a very slow child that needs affirmation. Next up we have Last of Our Kind, which is here on vinyl. I don't have the first 3 albums on vinyl. They're not easy to get hold of. They weren't printed that readily. Yes, even Permission to Land. It was just released at the wrong time. Vinyl wasn't really a thing in the early 2000s, and if it was incredibly expensive. I haven't got the first 3, but I've got the next 4 studio albums on vinyl. Last of Our Kind was essentially my introduction to them. When I first heard The Darkness, don't get me wrong, I heard The Darkness when Permission to Land came out. That record was very big, very, very, very big, and you couldn't escape a Believe in a Thing Called Love. And there was a couple of ways I remember hearing a Believe in a Thing Called Love. I think my most vivid memory of hearing the song first was actually on Stars in Their Eyes. Someone singing Believe in a Thing Called Love. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be. Yeah, and I always thought it was a Queen song. I thought it was like a new Queen song. I don't know why. I wasn't into music at this point. In 2003, I would be fresh into high school, and I hadn't caught the music bug yet. It would be a few more years until I got into music. So yeah, music was like kind of peripherally there. So if I'd heard a band or a song, they must be crossing over quite hard, and The Darkness definitely did, because they were also on the SingStar game, like the karaoke PlayStation game, with a Believe in a Thing Called Love. So I remember singing it on that as well and having fun with that. You couldn't escape that song. Believe in a Thing Called Love was massive, and conversely the album, I remember seeing the album all the time in, Tesco and Woolworths, and yeah, Woolworths, that's how long ago that album came out. Yeah, I definitely remember the band being around at the time, but it wasn't until this album came out that I kind of went out and bought a Darkness record and was like, yeah, this is sick. And then I went back and bought One Way Ticket and Hotcakes, and was pretty much, converted to a Darkness fan pretty quickly. So the first single from this was Open Fire, I believe. It might have been Barbarian, I can't remember which one came first, but it definitely made me want to buy the album, because I was just on a mad, building of my record collection at this point. Really enjoyed Open Fire, the song, which has now become a really big live staple for them, which I'm not surprised. It's a very good song, and you can imagine it live when you listen to it. Goes down a storm live, but there's some absolute gems on this record, and I feel like this record kind of passed people by for the most part. The title track, Lost of Our Kind, very similar to Is It Just Me, I think, in terms of the chorus at least. Very big Queen style harmonies, very like late 70s style Queen harmonies.
We've sat like this, just waiting for the light rays to blacken the skies. Many times before, and we will again, God willing. I am honored to have served alongside men who inspire defiance. Sometimes I'm tired of the fighting and the killing. We are survivors, the ones left behind, defenders of the legacy, the lost of a kind. Children, we are the lost of our kind. Children, we are the lost of our kind.
The riff on Roaring Waters, what a riff that eventually leads into the guitar solo, this kind of halftime shuffle that changes the drum groove around underneath it. It's so cool, it's so simple but clever, and it's just awesome. Roaring Waters is an underrated gem in the Darkness's catalogue for me. I would love to see this song live, and I don't hear nearly enough people talk about this song when they're talking about the Darkness. Roaring Waters from Last of Our Kind, amazing. The final song on this album is sung by Frankie, the bass player. Man, the guy can sing. He can really sing. Why do they not utilise this more? I mean, they've got Justin Hawkins singing, obviously that's the reason, but dude, Frankie can sing. Yeah, the final track on this, Conquerors, go check it out if you've not heard it. Frankie singing, and he sings amazingly. Here you go.
And it's getting too lonely. We were always gonna be the conquerors. We were never gonna sail back home again.
As I said previously, there's a few eras of the Darkness. So we have our first era, which is Permission to Land and One Way Ticket. Yep. And the second era, which is Hotcakes and Last of Our Kind. Now, the reason I'm separating these three eras is mainly because of what comes next. Now, the Pinewood Smile album would be where Rufus Taylor comes into the mix, into the fold, and really completes the band and kind of has given them the last decade that they've had as, you know, a kind of touring entity and a really proactive recording band. They've been very consistent. The three albums that they've done with Rufus, not including the live album that they've done, is some of the best work I think they've ever put together, and they've really kind of utilised Rufus Taylor on the drums, and this was the first record they did with him. He actually joined them on the Last of Our Kind tour, I believe. We saw him on that tour, so we would have saw one of the first shows he would have done. And the songs on here are just, there isn't a bad song on Pinewood Smile. This is as good as Permission to Land for me, this album. They're really showing off the drummer in this. There's really lots of kind of drum moments. It's a great addition to the Darkness because as much as the Darkness have had a lot of classic sounding songs in their earlier albums, the drums have always been relatively rudimentary. It's never taken away from the songs because the songs have kind of relied on that. And I think once they got someone like Rufus in, they really started to flex their kind of virtuosity a bit more and showcase that they can write in other ways and write stuff that isn't just fall to the floor. Buccaneers of Hispaniola, probably a standout to me. The drumming's utterly insane on it. The riffs are amazing. Very daft high chorus from Justin, as always. One thing that does disappoint me with the vinyl release of this is that one of my favourite songs on it, Happiness, which they actually released as a single, isn't on the album. We know the reasoning. It's usually because there isn't enough room to put all the tracks that are on the CD onto a vinyl, which is pretty disappointing, but they left out my favourite song from the album, which is Shit.
This is my heart, no one ever broke the one of my ego. You don't have to struggle, repeat after me. I love you, you said it.
Another favourite on this for me is I Wish I Was in Heaven. The guitar riffs on this are just mwah, beautiful. Well done, Dan. I believe it's Dan writing all these mad riffs. But there isn't a bad song on this, and they kind of came out all guns blazing with Rufus, behind the kit. And again, this album really just kind of passed people by, and I don't see it talked about nearly enough. And I think this is an absolute gem in their discography. If you're a Darkness fan and you've not really given Pinewood Smile a go and listen to this record. It is a masterpiece, frankly. Rock perfection.
I wish it wasn't heaven. 'Cause there's nothing left for me on earth. I wish it wasn't heaven with you. With you. 'Cause there's nothing left for me on earth.
On to Easter is Cancelled, which probably has one of the coolest artworks they've ever done. Look at that for a sleeve. Can you see that, camera? This has probably one of the coolest artworks they've done. Look at that for a sleeve. That's just amazing. This is just a really cool, much darker side to the Darkness. There's a lot more heavy metal elements, I'd say. There's some real attempts to bring the girth. Yeah, I feel comfortable saying that. But there's definitely a metal element to this album. You still get that signature Darkness rock sound across this, but it's definitely darker in tone, especially from the title track Easter is Cancelled, which becomes quite a prophetic song. This was released in 2019, and then Easter was cancelled in 2020, so they did predict the pandemic on this. It's got some absolutely belting songs. The opening song, Rock and Roll Deserves to Die, what an opening song that is. The video for it is just mental. It's just brilliant. Fun little fact, I actually got cast as one of the extras for the video and never turned up because I can't remember. I think I had a gig and woke up late or something, or I just woke up and I couldn't be bothered, or I don't know. I regret not doing it. It's one of them life decisions. I'm like, why didn't I do that? Because they were only shooting up the road, I believe, in Bolton, which wasn't too far from where I was living. And yeah, I should have been in the Rock and Roll Deserves to Die video, probably shouting and pointing and screaming at the Darkness while they went bald. And yeah, if you've not seen the video, go and watch it. It's a brilliant video, and what a kind of premise for a song as well. And it does kind of touch on that thing I was saying about, rock bands not really doing much to advance the genre, and I think the Darkness are the antidote to that kind of argument. Definitely on this album as well. There's just so much fire in the belly of this album. I want to just quickly read you one of the verses of a song from this album, because, like I say, there's always the tongue in cheek. There's always a wink in the eye with the Darkness, and
Roll, your time has finally come. I am afraid you must die. Rock and roll, your time has finally come. I am afraid you must die. Now I'm afraid you must die.
there's a song called Heavy Metal Lover on this album, which is just lyrically very, very, very absurd. I'm going to read this. So, lipstick on my coffee cup, blood in the bath, your favourite power ballad is chopped in half. You're so metal I'm afraid you'll rust, but you fear nothing, in Satan you trust. I mean, you're so metal I'm afraid you'll rust. That's really funny. That's really fucking funny. I really laughed hard the first time I heard that.
Lipstick on my coffee cup, blood in the bath. Your favourite power ballad is chopped in half. You're so metal afraid you'll rust, but you fear nothing in faith in you trust.
Another great album by The Darkness, not a bad song on this whatsoever. It's just a testament to how much they care about the format of the album and doing new music and being a relevant modern recording artist, which they absolutely are. And to me, they are one of the purveyors of premium rock and roll in today's age for me. It's a genre that, has a lot of cliches attached to it, a lot of negative stereotypes, a lot of bad dad rock images attached to it, but I feel The Darkness are very authentic in giving this genre a much needed breath of fresh air, and their modern records keep proving that over and over again for me.
Never gonna stop. Shitting out solid gold. And we're never gonna stop. Shitting out solid gold. And we're never gonna stop. Shitting out solid gold. And we're never gonna stop.
So now we're on to Motorheart, which is the latest Darkness album. It's probably the one I'm listening to the most at the moment. It's brilliant, frankly. I was a bit bemused when the first single came out, and it was about, shagging a robot. But it's The Darkness, what do you expect?
And I kept the receipt in case you don't believe me. Say you'll never leave me. Love is so hard. Nothing like a human being turns your love, your queen. Love's so hard. She's kept your love like she.
And then Jussie's Girl as well, which has actually become my favourite song on the album, which is obviously a nod to Rick Springfield and has that real kind of 80s, power ballad sort kind of radio rock vibe to it. It's a really great song, Jussie's Girl. I'm going to read the bridge out to you, and then you can hear it. And if you don't want to be Jussie's girl, have you got a friend who looks just like you, but maybe isn't as fussy and wants to be with Jussie? I'm Jussie, won't you be Jussie's girl? Have you got a friend who isn't as fussy? Oh, wonderful. Wonderful lyric writing. That's hard to say, man. Lyric writing. Wonderful.
And if you don't wanna be Jussie's girl, have you got a friend who looks just like you, but maybe isn't as fussy and wants to be with Jussie? I'm Jussie, would you be Jussie's girl?
I really do think The Darkness have kind of really hit their stride in terms of their style and their songwriting. Like I said towards the beginning of this video, there isn't much to say about the sonic palette beyond it's a rock band writing rock songs. That's what it is at the heart of everything that The Darkness does. But beyond that, there is some significant variation in what they do. Definitely in terms of how they voice chords and how they will write a kind of, traditional hard rock riff. They are very thoughtful in adding some originality to that. I would absolutely recommend anyone that hasn't checked out The Darkness's later material and is just kind of lost in the Permission to Land kind of era of The Darkness, which is, admittedly probably some of their best stuff, but there is a lot more to this band. There's a lot more to delve into and a lot more to enjoy. So go and seek out the more modern records. Definitely Motorheart, Easter is Cancelled, and Pinewood Smile. Those three are brilliant in my opinion. Last of Our Kind's got some absolute gems on it. Hotcakes is not nearly as bad as you remember. Go and listen to it again. One Way Ticket has got some of their best songs, but probably some of their worst songs, in my opinion. And then Permission to Land is, I'll agree, it's a flawless classic. But there is much more to The Darkness than that flawless classic. Just one little caveat before I do leave. If I didn't talk about The Darkness as a live band, I'd be remiss. They are fantastic live. I've seen them 3 times myself, and I have to be honest. In one way, it's probably the best live band I've seen. Now, this is for one specific factor, and it's down to the sound. Now, that they must have some exceptional front of house sound engineers. I don't know if they've had the same one every time we've seen them, but I've never heard guitar tones captured so perfectly and so clearly on a stage and then come back to the audience through the PA in such a clean way. Everything just sounds perfect. You can hear every nuance of the guitar tones, and the drum sound is always ginormous, and bass is always really audible. Everything, Justin's vocal sits perfectly. You can tell they really pay attention to the sonic elements of a live show. They don't just turn up, plug in the amps, and they're away to go. There's definitely like a clear consideration of having a live sound, and I've really gone away from every Darkness gig just kind of really feeling the gig. And I say this as someone who goes to a lot of concerts and plays a lot of gigs myself. I really recognise the difference when a band have paid attention to that side of things, and I'd recommend anybody to go and watch The Darkness if they are a rock or metal fan. They are absolutely phenomenal live. They sound incredible, and Justin is genuinely one of the funniest frontmen you'll ever watch. Charisma in spades, absolutely hilarious, and every gig you go to very, very much feels spontaneous and in the moment, and like they are responding to the crowd that they're in front of rather than just going through another city, which I get the feeling from a lot of other bands personally when I am watching gigs. So The Darkness are definitely one to watch live. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I really appreciate it. If you can do me a favour and like the video, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on The Darkness. If you're a big Darkness fan, let me know what you thought of my choices of favourite songs, and let me know your opinion on Hotcakes. I'll have many more videos coming like this about other artists. Leave some suggestions in the comments of artists I can potentially cover. And yeah, thanks very much for stopping by, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.